You'll never succeed without us. My father's voice thundered through the mahogany-paneled study, shaking the very foundation of the Blackwood legacy. Law school isn't a suggestion, Alexandra. It's your destiny. 3 generations have built this name, and you want to throw it all away for what? A tech startup. I stood there, 22 years old, and on the verge of disappointing everyone who had ever dictated my future. The walls around me bore the weight of expectation. Law degrees, bar association plaques, a legacy carved in polished wood and rigid tradition. It's not just any startup, Dad. I kept my voice even, though my pulse raced. The software I developed could revolutionize how small businesses manage operations. Investors are already interested. Investors? My mother's laugh was crisp, cutting. Seated in the leather armchair, she looked every inch the corporate wife, impeccable, calculating. Who in their right mind would invest in a 22-year-old with no business experience? You haven't even finished law school. Because I don't want to be a lawyer, the words erupted before I could temper them, echoing through the study. I never did. The only reason I even applied was to make you happy. My father's jaw tightened as he moved behind his massive desk, a fortress that had always seemed to separate us. This isn't about happiness, Alexandra. It's about responsibility. About honoring what your grandfather and I built. Blackwood and Associates isn't just a law firm. It's our legacy. I inhaled deeply, squaring my shoulders. I understand that, but I need to build my own legacy. I deferred my next semester at law school. My prototype is nearly complete. I have meetings with venture capitalists next month. Absolutely not. His fist slammed against the desk. You will not throw away your future on some tech fantasy. You're a Blackwood. You belong in law. And if I refuse? Silence. My mother's manicured nails tapped rhythmically against the armrest. The only sound in the room. Then my father spoke, his voice eerily calm. Then you're on your own. No tuition, no trust fund, no support. If you reject this family, you reject everything that comes with it. I had prepared for this moment, but the finality of his words still landed like a punch to the gut. That trust fund alone was worth millions. Security, status, everything they assumed I wouldn't dare walk away from. I met his gaze. I understand. My voice was steady, surprising even me. I'll have my things packed by tomorrow. My mother sighed, exasperated. Don't be dramatic, Alexandra. Be reasonable. Finish law school, join the firm, and you can pursue your hobbies in your spare time. Hobbies, that's all they thought this was. They never saw the sleepless nights, the lines of code, the potential. To them, anything outside the law was just a distraction. It's not a hobby, Mom. It's my future, my choice. My father's expression hardened. Then you've made your choice. Jennifer will help you pack. He turned to my mother. Call Robert at the bank. Freeze Alexandra's accounts first thing in the morning. You don't have to, I said, reaching into my bag. I placed an envelope on the desk. I already transferred everything back to you. Every penny you've given me since I turned 18. I don't want anything from you except the chance to prove you wrong. That got their attention. My father picked up the envelope, his brows furrowing as he skimmed the bank statement inside. I had spent the past month liquidating everything, preparing for this exact moment. All that remained was what I had earned, just enough to scrape by, but it was mine. You thought this through, he admitted, a flicker of something, respect, crossing his face. I have. I straightened, channeling every lesson they had taught me about confidence. And I want you both to remember this moment. Because in 10 years, when you see what I've built, I want you to know you had no part in it. My mother rose, smoothing her skirt. You're making a terrible mistake. Maybe, I said, turning for the door. Or maybe the real mistake was forcing me into a life I never wanted. I guess we'll see. Stepping out of that study felt like stepping off a cliff. Behind me, I heard my mother start to cry, my father's voice low as he comforted her. A part of me wanted to turn back, to say something, anything, to make this easier. But I didn't. I had spent my whole life living for them. Now it was time to live for myself. The first year after securing funding blurred into sleepless nights, endless meetings, and more coffee than any human should legally consume. Kingston Ventures didn't just write a check. They plugged me into a network of mentors, advisors, and most importantly, our first major clients. SmartOps was growing faster than I dared to dream. We'd outgrown my tiny apartment. upgrading to an actual office. Nothing fancy, but big enough for our team of 6. Every hire felt like both a triumph and a terrifying gamble. These people were trusting their careers to my vision. Alex, Maya, my head of development, appeared in my doorway one evening. "You need to see this." I glanced up from the latest quarterly report. "Good news or bad?" She grinned, sliding a tablet across my desk. "Good, really good." I scanned the numbers, then blinked again. Our user base had grown 300% in a single month. Word of mouth was spreading through small business communities faster than we could keep up. "This is," I started. "Incredible? Terrifying? Both." Maya laughed. "We need more servers, more developers, and probably a bigger office." She wasn't wrong. We were at a tipping point, scale up or get swallowed whole. It was time for another funding round. I was in the middle of preparing for a meeting with potential Series A investors when an email made my heart skip. Thomas Blackwood. "Hey sis. Just a heads up, Dad saw an article about smart ops. He's not thrilled. Called it a trendy tech scheme and ranted about you wasting your potential instead of doing real work. Just thought you should know they might reach out. P.S. I'm proud of you." Tommy. I leaned back, emotions twisting. 14 months since I walked out of my parents' house. 14 months of silence, broken only by Tommy's occasional messages. A small part of me had hoped they'd seen the press coverage, that maybe they'd realize I was building something real. Apparently not. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "We need to talk. Your father and I are concerned about the direction you're taking." I ignored it. I had a company to run. Their concerns were no longer my problem. The next morning, I stepped into the office and stopped cold. My father stood in the reception area, a stark contrast to our startup's casual atmosphere, his perfectly tailored suit immaculate as ever. "Alexandra," he said, voice laced with the same authority that used to make me shrink. "We need to discuss this situation." I kept my tone steady. "Do you have an appointment?" He blinked. "I'm your father. I shouldn't need one." "Actually, you do. I'm running a company, Dad. My time isn't my own anymore." I turned to Lisa, our office manager. "Please show Mr. Blackwood out. If he wants a meeting, he can go through my assistant." Shock flickered across his face. "This is ridiculous," he started, but I was already walking away. "Goodbye, Dad. Next time, call first." It wasn't until I was alone in my office that I allowed myself a moment to breathe, my hands trembling ever so slightly. Standing up to him had never gotten easier, but I'd gotten better at pretending it had. Maya appeared in the doorway. "You good?" That looked intense. "I'm fine." I straightened. "How's the new feature rollout going?" The next few weeks were a whirlwind: investor meetings, product updates, scaling challenges. Kingston Ventures had lined up introductions with some major VC firms, and the numbers being thrown around made my head spin. Then came the email that changed everything. "Dear Ms. Chen, I represent Horizon Capital. We've been following SmartOp's growth with great interest. Our analysis suggests you're addressing a significant market gap with impressive execution. We'd like to discuss leading your series around. Michael John, partner, Horizon Capital." Horizon Capital. Even my father would have to respect that name. They didn't just invest in startups, they built empires. The morning of the meeting, I adjusted my blazer, glancing at the city skyline from our new, bigger office. Sometimes, I still caught myself looking for the old water stain from my apartment wall, the one I covered with flowcharts and dreams. "They're here," Lisa's voice crackled through the intercom. I exhaled, fingers brushing the jade pendant my grandmother had given me. "Send them in." Michael John was younger than I expected, early 40s, with sharp eyes and a measured demeanor. 2 analysts trailed behind him, looking fresh out of business school. "Ms. Chen." He shook my hand. "Your growth metrics are impressive." "Thank you." I led them into the conference room, where Maya and our CFO, James, were waiting. "But I suspect you're more interested in where we're going than where we've been." John smiled. "Direct. I like that. Tell us about your vision for SmartOps." For the next 2 hours, we laid out everything: our roadmap, market strategy, financial projections. The analysts scribbled notes, exchanging glances. Finally, John leaned back. "Your technical foundation is solid. But what really interests us is your market insight. Most enterprise software targets large corporations, leaving small businesses behind. You've identified a massive, untapped market. I nodded. People assume small businesses can't afford sophisticated software, but they can't afford not to have these tools. They just need them built, priced, and delivered in a way that makes sense. John studied me. I did some research on you. Alexandra Blackwood, or should I say, Alex Chen. My pulse quickened, but I kept my face unreadable. I prefer to focus on the future. Fair enough. He smiled. But I have to ask, why walk away from a guaranteed future in law to build this? I met his gaze. Because some guarantees come at too high a price. I believe real value comes from solving real problems, not following a predetermined path. SmartOps isn't just about making money. It's about leveling the playing field. John nodded. Well said. He slid a folder across the table. We'd like to offer you terms for a $20 million Series A round at a $100 million valuation. Even Maya, usually unshakable, made a small choking sound. That's generous, I managed. It's realistic, John corrected. You've built something valuable. We want to help you scale it. As we discussed terms, my mind raced. This was a game changer. More hires, expanded product lines, international growth. But it also meant scrutiny, pressure, expectations I'd have to meet. I'll need to review this with my team and current investors, I said finally. Of course. John stood and paused. One more thing, we typically issue a press release when we close major investments. Given your family background, this might generate some attention. Will that be a problem? I thought about my father's face in the office lobby, my mother's unread messages. No problem at all. That night, as the city lights flickered outside my window, my phone buzzed again. Mom, your father is very upset. Please be reasonable and talk to us. I typed my first response in over a year. Me, I am being reasonable. I'm being successful. If you want to talk, you know where to find me. Then I turned back to my computer, reviewing the deal that would change everything. My parents believed legacy was something you inherited. I was about to show them that sometimes legacy is something you build. The Horizon Capital investment changed everything. The moment the press release hit, SmartOps wasn't just a promising startup anymore. It was the hottest name in tech. My inbox overflowed with congratulations, LinkedIn requests, and interview invitations. Investors, reporters, industry leaders, everyone suddenly wanted a piece of what we were building. But the message I was waiting for never came. Still nothing from Mom and Dad. Thomas asked during our weekly video call. He looked exhausted. His marine biology PhD was grueling enough, but I knew our family situation wasn't helping. Not directly, I said, adjusting my laptop. But their lawyer reached out. What? His brow furrowed. Why? I let out a short laugh. They want to discuss potential intellectual property concerns. Dad seems to think that because I first had the idea for SmartOps while in law school, they might have some kind of claim to it. Thomas's expression darkened. That's ridiculous. They know that. This isn't about IP, it's about control. But our lawyers shut it down fast. Everything was developed after I left, and I have the documentation to prove it. Thomas sighed. I knew they were mad. But this, Mom's been impossible since the Horizon Capital news broke. She keeps saying you embarrassed the family by making this so public. I didn't make anything public. The press put two and two together. It's not hard to figure out who Alexandra Blackwood used to be. The headlines had practically written themselves. Tech heiress defies family legacy to build software empire. Every article leaned into the drama. Rich, powerful parents, rebellious daughter, a battle of expectations versus ambition. Before I could say more, my phone buzzed. A message from Maya, emergency meeting. Server issues. Now. Sorry, Tommy. Crisis mode. He gave me a tired smile. Go be a tech mogul. Love you, sis. The server issue turned out to be a full-blown infrastructure crisis. Our growth was outpacing our systems, causing slowdowns and outages. Not the kind of thing we could afford with our sudden high-profile status. We need a complete architectural overhaul, Maya said, whiteboards covered in frantic sketches behind her. The current system won't scale with our projections. How long? 3 months minimum, and we need more developers. Do it, I said. Whatever you need. We can't lose momentum now. The next few months blurred together, scaling, hiring, product updates. We expanded to another floor, growing to a team of 50. Every day brought a new challenge, a new opportunity. And then, everything changed again. Ms. Chen. My assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. There's a Mrs. Blackwood here to see you. I froze. My mother? Yes. She doesn't have an appointment, but I exhaled slowly. Send her in. She walked into my office like she was entering a second-rate restaurant, hiding her distaste, but not well enough. Perfectly styled, designer-dressed, radiating quiet disapproval. Alexandra. Her gaze swept the room, lingering on the walls covered in diagrams and code. This is interesting. I didn't bother with pleasantries. What do you want, Mom? She sat uninvited, smoothing the fabric of her skirt. Your father and I are concerned. I let out a short laugh. Concerned about what? That I built something without your permission. Her lips thinned. Don't be crude. This venture of yours has attracted attention. People are talking. The Blackwood name means something in this city. I folded my arms. I don't use the Blackwood name anymore. Haven't for 2 years. Yes, about that. She gave a pointed look. Taking your grandmother's name was unnecessary. You know how your father felt about her influence on you. I smiled, sharp and unbothered. She'd encouraged me to follow my dreams. That's not influence, it's support. My mother sighed, as if I were a stubborn child. Dreams. You had everything set up for you. The finest education, a place at the firm, a real career. Instead, you've chosen this tech phase. I stood. This tech phase built a company valued at over $100 million. What part of that isn't real enough for you? Money isn't everything, Alexandra. I let out a cold laugh. That's easy to say when you've never had to worry about it. I turned to the window, watching the city stretch beneath me. Why are you really here? She hesitated. We've discussed it, and we're willing to make you an offer. Come back to law school, take your rightful place at the firm, and well. I turned stunned. Let me guess. You'll let me keep a minority stake in Smart Ops. Under family control, of course. Don't be dramatic. She lifted her chin. We're giving you a chance to save face. This tech bubble won't last forever. When it bursts, you'll need a real career. I shook my head, laughing softly. Get out. She blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. Get out of my office. Get out of my building. And tell Dad that if he so much as thinks about interfering in my company again, I'll make sure every business journalist in the country knows exactly how Jonathan Blackwood tried and failed to manipulate his daughter's success. Her mask of composure cracked just for a second. You wouldn't dare. I met her gaze, unwavering. Try me. She stood, gathering her dignity like armor. You've changed, Alexandra. No, I said quietly. I've just stopped pretending. After she left, I sat at my desk, breathing through the adrenaline still coursing through me. Then I did something I'd been putting off for months. I called the reporter. Ms. Chen. His voice crackled with interest. We'd love to do a feature on Smart Ops and your journey. I'm ready to talk, I said. About everything. The article dropped 3 weeks later, and the response was overwhelming. My inbox flooded with messages, from young entrepreneurs breaking away from family expectations, from parents rethinking how they supported their children's dreams, from investors who wanted to be part of whatever we were building next. You've started a movement, Maya said one night, picking at a cold slice of pizza in the office. People are calling you a role model. I touched my grandmother's jade pendant, thinking of her words. The highest mountains are the hardest to climb, but the view from the top is worth every step. I never wanted to be a role model, I said. I just wanted to be me. Maya grinned. Well, just you made Forbes 30 under 30. How's that feel? I glanced around, at the whiteboards covered in plans, at the empty pizza boxes from another late-night brainstorm, at the team that had become my real family. It feels, I said, like we're just getting started. 3 years after turning down my mother's so-called offer, Smart Ops had become more than I ever imagined. We'd expanded internationally, our software powered over 1 million businesses, and our latest valuation had skyrocketed past $2 billion. The little startup that once ran on ramen and late-night coding sessions in my roach-infested apartment was now a heavyweight in the business software world. But success brings its own complications. They're calling again, Lisa said, poking her head into my office. Third time this week. I didn't have to ask who they were. Blackwood and Associates had been reaching out relentlessly ever since we'd announced our plans to go public. Same answer, I said without looking up. Any legal matters can go through our corporate counsel. Between SEC filings, investor presentations, and back-to-back meetings with bankers, I barely had time to breathe. But this IPO would change everything. It would give us the capital to expand, to push our technology further, to help even more small businesses thrive. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. Just saw the IPO announcement. Dad's losing it. Says you're destroying the family name by playing in the stock market. I smirked. According to my father, destroying the family name apparently included building a multi-billion-dollar company from nothing. The irony was almost funny. The morning of our first major roadshow presentation, I arrived early to find an envelope on my desk. The return address made my stomach tighten. Blackwood and Associates. I unfolded the letter, immediately recognizing my father's precise, almost clinical handwriting. Alexandra, your mother and I have followed your company's progress with increasing concern. While your success in the technology sector is noteworthy, we believe the timing is right to reunify the family interests. We propose a merger, bringing SmartOps under the Blackwood family umbrella. You would maintain your current role while benefiting from our guidance and experience. In return, we would drop any potential claims regarding the company's intellectual property origins. Consider this an olive branch. Family legacy is about more than individual achievement. Jonathan Blackwood, senior partner. I barely registered Maya's voice as she rushed into my office, excitement lighting up her face. Alex, you need to see this. The preliminary investor interest is insane. We might need to increase the offering size. She stopped when she saw my expression. What's wrong? Wordlessly, I handed her the letter. She scanned it quickly, her expression shifting from confusion to disgust. They're unbelievable, she muttered. They really think they can just claim SmartOps now that we're successful. They've always thought they could control me, I said, standing and walking to the window. The city stretched out below, a different view from the one I used to stare at as a broke, terrified 22-year-old. What are you going to do? I turned back to my desk, pulled out a fresh sheet of paper, and began writing. Dear Father, thank you for your letter. After careful consideration, I must decline your proposal. SmartOps is not, and will never be, part of the Blackwood family business. You speak of legacy as if it is something to be inherited rather than created. But in the past 5 years, I've learned that true legacy isn't about preserving the past. It's about building something new, something that matters. SmartOps empowers small business owners to achieve their dreams. Every day we hear from people whose lives have changed because of what we've built. That is the legacy I choose. As for your implied threats regarding intellectual property, our lawyers have already addressed this. But I'll make you an offer of my own. Stop trying to interfere with my company, and I'll stop telling the world how the prestigious Blackwood family tried to bully their daughter into submission and failed. You taught me that reputation is everything. Perhaps it's time to consider what your actions say about yours. Alexandra Chen, CEO, SmartOps Incorporated. I sent copies to my parents and their lawyers. Then, I turned my attention back to the IPO presentation. We had a future to build. The day of our IPO dawned bright and clear. Standing on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, surrounded by my team, I felt an overwhelming sense of completion. To my right stood Maya, now our CTO. Beside her was Sarah, the friend who let me crash on her couch all those years ago, now our Chief Marketing Officer. And then, just beyond the cameras and flashing lights, I saw him. Thomas. He'd flown in, knowing our parents would disapprove. His smile was unmistakable. Ready? He asked, wrapping me in a tight hug. More than ready. The opening bell rang, and within hours, we were the talk of Wall Street. Our stock price soared, marking one of the most successful tech IPOs of the year. That evening, our office buzzed with celebration. Investors, employees, and supporters filled the space, toasting to everything we built. Even Michael John from Horizon Capital was there, raising a glass. To Alexandra Chen, he said, the entrepreneur who proved that the best legacy is the one you build yourself. I looked around at the people who had become my real family, the engineers who pulled all-nighters, the sales team who never gave up, the customer support reps who believed in what we were doing. Then my phone buzzed one last time. A text from my mother. "Saw you on CNBC, your grandmother would have been proud." I blinked back an unexpected rush of emotion. It wasn't quite an apology, but maybe it was a start. I reached for the jade pendant around my neck, thinking of my grandmother's words. "The highest mountains are the hardest to climb, but the view is worth it." And as I stood there, on the summit of everything I had built, I finally understood. Legacy isn't just about where you come from, it's about where you choose to go. And for the first time in my life, I knew, without a doubt, I was exactly where I was meant to be.